Chile is a laboratory for energy technology, and if you are successful here, it's most probably you will be successful in other parts of the world.
I'm sitting here with Rodrigo Saez, a longtime leader in Chile's energy sector and someone who's been at the forefront of the clean energy transition in Latin America. Rodrigo has led major companies, helped shape national policy, and now advises others on how to navigate the complex energy landscape. He's worked on everything from large-scale energy storage to virtual net billing solutions. And we're lucky to have him here today to share his insights on where the sector is heading.
What are the typical mistakes companies make when they want to bring technology into the Chilean market?
Underestimate the complexities, the sophistication, and certain factors that our market has.
What should companies know about the Chilean renewable market that might be different than other places in the world?
In terms of the larger ones, risk management for the PPAs is a key issue, meaning you have to understand the spot market, the nodal price systems, the infrastructure itself, and to get in, and to have in your team those abilities in order to manage the risk properly.
We would like to know more about you. So can you tell us a little about your history?
Yes, of course. First of all, these are exciting times to work at the energy industry. We have been facing a huge transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And I've been there the past 20 years, focusing especially on my purpose, which has been to get rid of CO2 technologies, CO2 emissions, and to help companies evolve at this transition. I started at the North Chile as a CEO for over 20 years. We were a smaller company where we applied new business models, new technology at that time. For example, we were the first to bring to Latin America CPV technology, which was concentrated photovoltaics, a former technology that promised a lot at that time because of the high efficiency, but of course at higher cost. After all, normal PV panels evolved and were cost effective, and the technology didn't evolve further. But we were very successful at that time with the first pilot unit in Latin America at industrial scale and afterwards at commercial scale. Just as an example, you always have to find new ways to compete, look for new technologies that could bring a different solution to a problem that maybe doesn't have the proper one yet. After all those 15 years, we evolved from a very small company to a medium-sized company with different business models, with very impressive results. For example, we were the commercial and energy supplier for the metro in Santiago, when nowhere was talking about commercialization of energy. But my second involvement was as a CCO for CAS Andes, especially at the time where the company required to evolve or to transform their business model from commercialization of energy from the coal power plants to new renewable assets. Therefore, we developed and executed that strategy.
Wow.
Interesting times. Again, commercialization was part of my involvement too. I didn't only sell energy to mining companies, but to C&I ones. We had the most important year in terms of volume of commercialization for the whole company history across the world.
Wow.
And then by 2017, I became the CEO for Energía Latina, SME company or generation company in Chile, public one, where I transformed the company from being just a thermal one in terms of assets to renewable energy in solar. We had the first long-duration energy storage projects for Latin America, especially for Chile, of course, but in Latin America, with two different technologies. We had net billing, we had different business models, transforming completely the company. This has been my experience driven by a purpose, to get rid of CO2 from the energy generation mix and bringing this as soon as possible for the future of our children, for our future.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. So with the experience that you've mentioned, and with the time that you've been in the industry, where does the Chilean renewable energy industry currently stand?
At impressive numbers. We have more than 40% of renewable penetration, especially in wind and solar. And you have to imagine, 5 to 10 years ago, we had only 5% of the energy generation matrix following solar and wind. This required a huge investment for private companies, regulation changes, new business models applied. It came with challenges, of course. Right now, there is a lot of solar in the northern part of the country. We have several parts of the sun, of the local grid, with very good wind resources, but we are very narrow and long as a country, not relevant interconnected with Argentina, Peru, and Bolivia, therefore kind of an electric island. And that means we have, as a result, several congestions on local problems, constraints for energy generation, but those are not problems only, are opportunities. And you have to think it that way. For the future, you will require several investments in utility scale, distributed generation, behind the meter, that address those problems. And this is a huge opportunity for foreign companies bringing their technology to help solve those problems. It means not only investments in CapEx, meaning infrastructure, but technology helping navigate those very complicated new ways to operate the system, to be able to predict what will be happening. But I'm sure we will discuss this in further questions.
So for foreign companies, as you said, that are coming to Chile to help with this, with the technology, what should companies know about the Chilean renewable market that might be different than other places in the world?
Yes, of course. Our market is driven by two things. We have a spot market where you have to compete for your energy every day, every hour, and you have to fulfill PPAs. Those are the things you have to keep in mind if you want to deploy infrastructure. Feed-in tariffs is not a thing here. There are certain policies, especially for distributed generation. Think of the PMGDs, which you can follow in the internet and understand what it is. But those are projects up to 9 megawatts, which was a great infrastructure policy for small investments. But in terms of the larger ones, risk management for the PPAs is a key issue. Meaning you have to understand the spot market, the nodal price systems, the infrastructure itself, and to get in and to have in your team those abilities in order to manage the risk properly.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So, what emerging technologies are having the biggest impact on the renewable energy sector today, from your experience?
Yes, of course. There are three things I would say: storage, digital solutions, and grid resiliency. Mm-hmm. If you understand correctly those three terms, there are a lot of opportunities. Why? Storage right now has evolved from the first initial projects up to large-scale ones. There are several companies with most of the largest storage projects in the world, even. Grenergy, for example, in another part of the country, is addressing one of the largest projects in the Atacama Desert, 5 hours BESS systems, also lithium-ion.
Wow.
Then you have to understand what will be the problematics that those BESS projects will be addressing in the future. And this is mostly optimization for dispatch, understanding or knowing what will be the marginal price in short term, mid-term, and long term, targeting your current operations or future projects. Then, how will all those technologies operate together at the different sizes? Because we are talking just utility scale. You have to think there are several resources in medium size, also meaning dozens of megawatts, or even smaller ones that are not even there and that will be existing in the future because you require even resiliency, which was my third term.
Yeah.
If you understand and you have technology that can address these three steps or these three pillars, there are several opportunities here to work on, and you will find a market willingly to talk to you, to look forward, how to implement your technology, and profitability should be not an issue in the future. Regulation, maybe. You will have to see if the regulation is there. For example, everything is evolving up to the larger size utility scale, up to smaller ones, but we don't have yet a regulation for virtual power plants, for example. With the virtual power plant, meaning if we have the behind-the-meter storage resources, we have solar, we have PV panels everywhere, and the net billing strategy is still producing their results, growing very fast, but we need more installations. If you combine solar with storage, energy demand response, and you are able to organize the operation of those resources, you could have very good assets to comply with local resiliency instead of only applying to resiliency from the larger utility scale power.
Wow, that's very interesting. So we'll touch more on regulation and policy,
Yep.
but I'd like to bring it back to, you mentioned about the energy storage, and I would like to know how are the energy storage solutions evolving and what innovation are making them more viable at scale?
There are several things to keep in mind in terms of the evolvement of storage solutions. First, you need to be able to correctly install them or deploy them, because our system has different problematics across the geography. If you install them in another part of the country, you will be facing large solar constraints, therefore taking energy from at zero price and delivering it during peak hours is something your current dispatch algorithms should be able to do. But as more deployments are there, those hours where you have to generate will not be as sure as right now. You have to predict. And the prediction of short-term marginal prices is something you require for the future in order to be able to be profitable. That technology is something we are looking for example. If you go to smaller ones, the coordination between all those storage power plants is something, again, very desirable. How the ISO will be able to manage all this, how the investors will be able to predict the operation scheme that you will be facing in short term, even in medium term, something not yet 100% sure. We are not 100% sure how we will respond to this question.
So still working towards that goal.
Exactly. And technology must help us get there.
Interesting. Cool. So now going back to what you were talking before about the regulation and compliance, what regulation or what regulatory or compliance challenges arise when now we're deploying new renewable technologies in Latin America?
First of all, you have to remember Chile is a stable company in terms of regulations. We have special regulations that help foreign investors to be able to get their expectations in time as profitable as they expected, if they do things right, of course. Meaning regulation stability. But especially when everyone is transforming the business models, regulations tend to step behind or lag behind the technology innovation. And you have to keep that in mind. Secondly, our market is highly regulated. We can compete. It's an open competition between technologies and cost of development. But everything is very well regulated in terms of how I connect to the grid, how I operate, how I generate the profits or the revenues. Therefore, it's a key asset that I always recommend to study it, to have that knowledge within your team, or to rely on very good third parties that help you understand how to compete in Chile. Secondly, it's evolving. 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we didn't have, for example, the required regulations for storage. I personally saw that problem and stepped into bringing the capacity payments, for example, recognizing the most important characteristics of storage into the regulations and bringing the required legal changes and procedural changes. It's not always legal changes.
That's very interesting.
Always keep in mind that to be able to compete here and to see or to push forward the required changes, there are associations where you can step into. Generators have their special associations, meaning the larger generators or the SME generator association, where I was president and I was vice president for several years, because I understood that's the way to do. If you are an investor, that's the way to do the regulation changes you require in Chile. If you are, for example, a technology provider, there are other generators like Acera, like Acesol, where they manage their interests directly with the authorities. And it's very interesting how you understand what's happening, how to try to manage what's happening and bring that regulation into place. It requires several years, but you have to keep that in mind and work with it. Otherwise, it's almost impossible, or it will most probably be just of luck that you require what you need in terms of the framework to compete, I mean.
Interesting. So, taking all of it in consideration, what are the typical mistakes companies make when they want to bring technology into the Chilean market?
That's a very good question, Diego. I would say first, underestimates the complexities, the sophistication, and certain factors that our market has. You have to think, you have to understand that the regulations, the type of customers, that the complexity that we already have as a market requires certain things. First of all, study the dynamics of our market. Understand that long-term businesses, for example, if you want to go to the mining industry, I know ex-legal is very powerful on the mining market, trust. You have to build trust with your customers. It's not a one-time deal. Certain market segments require that meeting, that understanding of your problematics, that you understand who I am and why I will be here for 10, 15 years maybe, delivering the solutions you require. Secondly, business models must be adapted to the local scheme, to the local way of doing things, to the local regulations, to the market dynamics. I've seen several cases where you try to do what you were doing in Europe or the US, just no adaptation or very small adaptations, and try to commercialize it here without any success. Second, local presence. Trying to remotely manage the local business is a mistake. Have your local teams engage with the local customers, understanding the opportunities, understanding how to do business is a key issue. Adapt your strategies and keep a regional focus. Not all the things happens in Santiago. There are other business areas, of course, the northern part of the country for the mining industry, maybe the region in Concepcion for certain things. You have to have a mobile team following the customer requirements. That would be my advice.
Great. So just to wrap it up, for the last question, those are great advices, but I would like to ask you, what are the top 2 or 3 advices that you would give a company that's bringing a technology or software into the Chilean renewable market? Top 2 or 3 advices that you would give them, what would it be?
First, customer segmentations. Who are you trying to sell what? Is your solution tailored for specific needs? Yes. or no, go to that market, understand the customer problematics, talk to them, build that relationship, and of course, have a local presence that could be yourself, or for example, we can help you understand that, keep that local presence, and negotiate your first pilot unit. Demonstrate to those customers that your solution is a viable one that can compete. As I've said several times, Chile is maybe a small market, but it's a very competitive one. We have very good radiation, or the highest radiation in the world, for example, for solar power plants. Meaning it's not only very good for generating energy, it's a very strict and complex environmental condition for your equipment. If it works there, for example, or if we can convince a large mining company where we can deliver the energy service that we are providing, is because we have already a very good quality of service. They don't sign with anyone. This meaning Chile is a laboratory for energy technology, and if you are successful here, it's most probably you will be successful in other parts of the world. That's my advice. That's how you should understand why you should come to Chile to test your equipment, commercially, of course, not technically, and to compete at harsh but interesting and stable long-term conditions to be successful.
Great. That was a very good advice. Well, we're very happy to have you here, and thank you for your time and for the interview.
Yeah, thank you, Diego.
Thank you for everything.